Hello, guys. Have you ever daydreamed about a day when a blush-inducing, heart-racing encounter comes your way? But everything in life comes with a price tag. Is such an encounter truly a blessing? Let's dive into today's movie to find out. Meet Jonathan, a rule-abiding accountant whose introverted and timid nature keeps him from socializing, leading a life as still as a stagnant pond. One evening, a tall and handsome man approaches Jonathan, introducing himself as White, a lawyer, and strikes up a conversation with ease. White senses the suppressed life Jonathan leads and offers him contraband to share. Surprised by White's uninhibited behavior, a longing stirs within Jonathan, and before he knows it, they're indulging in his office. This daring act brings Jonathan a joy he's never experienced, subtly bridging the gap between them. After the mischief ends, Jonathan heads to the subway station to head home. A blonde beauty suddenly stands beside him, and their eyes meet, sending a jolt through Jonathan, making him instantly understand what love at first sight feels like. But his introverted nature prevents him from striking up a conversation, leaving him to only remember the S charm on her bag. To his surprise, she initiates a conversation, albeit about the subway route, which leaves Jonathan feeling unexpectedly flattered. He observes her from a distance, reluctant to part ways, but realizes the futility of it all. Lying in bed later, Jonathan is filled with regret for the missed connection, unaware that his life is about to undergo a dramatic transformation. The next day, White invites Jonathan to play tennis, bringing along two beautiful women as partners. Jonathan can't recall the last time he broke a sweat or interacted with women in such a setting. Even after the game, he can't stop thinking about their beauty. White, picking up on Jonathan's remarks, wears a suggestive smile. He invites Jonathan to his home, gifts him an expensive suit, and takes him out for a night of revelry. White implies that, like men, women have their own desires. This thought provokes Jonathan, who begins to reconsider his introverted nature. On the way home, White leaves early with a woman, entering a hotel, leaving Jonathan envious yet bitter. When will it be his turn? As Jonathan starts to adapt to this new lifestyle, he receives bad news. White is off to London to meet clients, and their escapades must come to a halt. Disheartened, Jonathan sees his dull life looming back, powerless to change it, and leaves with the phone on the table. As he enters the elevator, he receives a call and suddenly realizes he has White's phone, but it's too late to correct the mistake. White has already boarded a plane and is unreachable. Jonathan leaves a message and heads home, unaware of the adventure awaiting him. White's phone rings again, and a commanding voice on the other end demands a hotel meetup, leaving Jonathan no chance to explain. Recalling the enticing scenes he's witnessed, Jonathan convinces himself it's another romantic adventure. Emboldened, he decides to meet her. A stunning blonde approaches without introduction, quickly moving to undress. Stunned, Jonathan protests, but she proceeds unfazed. Confused yet unable to resist such an encounter, Jonathan goes along, enveloped in disbelief, yet enjoying the moment. As dawn breaks and the woman leaves, Jonathan feels as if he's been dreaming. On his way to work, he receives a call from White, who is nonchalant about the phone mix-up, hoping Jonathan enjoyed the thrill. After talking to White, Jonathan felt a bit more at ease and decided to try something new. He called a random number from an adult club's list and ended up meeting a woman who laid out the club's simple rules. No talking about work, no real names, just enjoy the moment and then go your separate ways. It was all about escaping the daily pressure for a while. This opened up a whole new side of life to Jonathan. He started meeting different women, each time leaving behind the stress of his everyday life, until one night at a bar, he bumped into the blonde woman from the subway. Seeing her about to undress, he panicked and stopped her, not wanting to ruin what he thought could be something special. He reminded her of their first brief encounter and asked her out to dinner, nearly letting his name slip in the excitement. She cut him off, reminding him of the club's rules. That evening, they didn't get physical. Instead, Jonathan just watched her sleep, promising himself he'd find a way to be with her. By morning, she was gone, leaving behind a note that made Jonathan feel like his heart had left with her. He couldn't bring himself to meet with anyone else after that. His patience paid off when she called him up for dinner. Overjoyed, Jonathan met her, and she surprised him with a scarf as a gift. At dinner, he couldn't hold back and told her how he felt, but she seemed to brush it off, reminding him of how they met. Trying to lighten the mood, Jonathan gave her a duck toy, which actually made her laugh and seemed to bring them closer. After dinner, they walked into the hotel together, undeterred by the rain. But when she asked for ice, Jonathan came back to an empty room with nothing but a disturbing stain on the bed and no sign of her. Before he could figure out what happened, someone knocked him out cold. After an indeterminate amount of time, Jonathan slowly regains consciousness, finding himself on the floor of the room, with everything seemingly unchanged. However, oddly enough, the bloodstains on the bed have vanished. Jonathan is instantly filled with panic, realizing the woman must be in danger, and he rushes to the hotel's front desk to call the police. When the detectives arrive, Jonathan doesn't hold anything back and shares everything that happened. But without the woman's name or any background information on her, the detectives can't offer much help. They even suggest the adult club might just be a figment of his imagination. What's more perplexing is that the hotel staff claims they saw Jonathan check in alone, and no trace of blood was found in the room. What on earth is happening? Jonathan is baffled, and the detective, considering it a waste of his time and suspecting he's just hallucinating from stress, leave his contact information and depart. Back home, Jonathan's confusion deepens when he notices a trophy has been moved. He hurriedly has his locks changed and attempts to contact White, to no avail. At the office, inquiries about White lead nowhere. The receptionist denies any knowledge of him, and even the business card turns out to be fake. The client White claimed to be visiting in London is, in fact, recuperating in the US. These revelations make Jonathan realize something is terribly wrong. Following his memory to White's supposed home, he's met by an elderly woman who claims she's never heard of White. Now completely dumbfounded, Jonathan wonders if everything that happened was just a dream or reality. Walking alone in the cold night, he feels his grip on reality slowly slipping away. Back home, Jonathan hears noises inside, but finds nothing upon investigation. Just then, a familiar voice breaks the silence. The missing White, sitting on the bed with a smug look, mocks Jonathan for falling for a woman from the club. But Jonathan's concerns lie elsewhere. He immediately demands to know the woman's whereabouts. In response, White's punch lands with a fury, his friendly facade replaced by a sinister threat. White reveals his demands. For Jonathan to see the woman again, he must transfer $20 million to an offshore account during a company transaction next week. It's all dirty money, and even if discovered, the company wouldn't dare call the police. Shocked, Jonathan realizes the entire ordeal was a setup by White, a man he thought was a friend. White, now pointing a gun, coldly threatens to kill the woman and pin it on Jonathan if he doesn't comply. Stunned by the revelation that he's been duped, Jonathan realizes the depth of White's deception. With a gun to his head and a threat to the woman he cares for, Jonathan is left with no choice but to comply. As White leaves, Jonathan's spirit sinks, grappling with the weight of his predicament. His struggle continues until White's phone buzzes with another invitation, this time from a woman who seems intimately acquainted with White. Seizing the opportunity, Jonathan rushes to the hotel where she's staying. Upon realizing he's not White, she's ready to show him the door, but Jonathan insists on his urgency, pleading for any information on White. His sincerity moves her, and she agrees to help. She recounts meeting White at a party and being swept off her feet by his charisma and wit. She discloses that White is an alias. His real name is Jamie. With renewed hope, Jonathan searches for information on Jamie online, only to find a fabricated story of his demise. Jonathan finds the detective's card and, pretending to be someone else, calls the police department's archives. He finally uncovers Jamie's background. He is a professional con artist who was once jailed for 3 years. It becomes clear that everything prior was a meticulously crafted lie. Suddenly, Jamie calls, reminding Jonathan of his task, but Jonathan, now fully aware of Jamie's true identity, boldly threatens to go to the police if the woman isn't released. Jamie, caught off guard by Jonathan's quick sleuthing, realizes he needs to make an example to assert control. The next day, while at work, Jonathan receives a call from a detective about a body found in a taxi, resembling the blonde woman Jonathan described. The news tightens Jonathan's chest. Has Jamie decided on a scorched earth policy out of rage? Gathering his courage, Jonathan approaches the body, and as the coroner peels back the covering, he sees a woman's gruesome demise. Relieved yet horrified, he realizes it's not his beloved, but the woman from their first meeting. Understanding this as Jamie's warning, he feigns ignorance to the police, then returns home shaken, only to discover his tennis racket missing, replaced by several voyeuristic photos in the bag. It's evident Jamie has been lurking, manipulating events from the shadows. Arriving at the subway station, Jamie emerges like a specter, warning Jonathan against any tricks, threatening a worse fate for his beloved. Jonathan, feeling cornered, reluctantly proceeds with the plan, following Jamie's detailed instructions mailed in an envelope. An account has been opened in Jonathan's name at a European bank. Transferring $20 million by the day's end promises the woman's release. As night falls and the transfer completes, Jamie sends a photo of the woman tied up in Jonathan's apartment. Frantic, Jonathan rushes home, spotting something amiss in the photo during the elevator ride. What's wrong with it? The moment the apartment door opens and the light switch flips, a massive explosion engulfs the figure inside, demolishing Jonathan's apartment. Watching from across the street, Jamie smirks, reveling in his apparent victory. He dons Jonathan's guise and glasses, perfectly mimicking his appearance. Preparing to leave, Jamie sees firefighters rolling out a body, easing his mind. Now impersonating Jonathan, he heads to Europe to withdraw the easy $20 million. But first, he plans to meet someone. Upon entering, the woman on the bed, Michelle, not a club member but an actress Jamie hired for $1 million, panics, learning of Jonathan's supposed death. Her anger and distress reveal she's genuinely fallen for Jonathan. Jamie, amused yet infuriated by her affection for Jonathan, vents his frustration. Later, at the bank, a large withdrawal prompts Jamie to go in alone, telling Michelle to wait outside. The manager, however, states the money requires 2 signatures, Jonathan's and White's. Jamie's plan is thwarted, realizing he needs Jonathan, who is dead. Dejected, Jamie exits to find Michelle gone, losing control over the situation. Suddenly, Jonathan, disguised as White and very much alive, confronts Jamie, offering to split the $20 million. Reluctantly, Jamie agrees, their joint identities convincing the bank manager to release the funds. As they secure the money, Jamie questions how Jonathan knew something was off. Jonathan reveals the photo Jamie sent was outdated, evidenced by the clean wall, contradicting recent water damage. Amused by the oversight, Jonathan proposes another deal, his half of the money for Michelle's return. Upon hearing Jonathan's proposal, Jamie is struck by disbelief. He leads Jonathan to a secluded area, not intending to trade, but rather to end things once and for all by drawing a handgun on Jonathan. At the critical moment, a bullet suddenly strikes, splattering Jamie's white shirt with red. Turning, he sees Michelle standing with a gun, her aim true. Jamie struggles to his feet, disbelief written across his face, unable to fathom such an ending. But Jonathan has no time to waste. He slips the fake passport into Jamie's pocket and turns to pursue Michelle, leaving Jamie to his fate on the bench. Michelle, overwhelmed by guilt for falling in love with Jonathan, ultimately rejects his plea to stay. She gets into a taxi, clutching the toy that symbolizes their love, as she decides to leave, settling the dust of their tumultuous relationship. The identity of the disfigured body is revealed to be a maintenance worker who had been fixing pipes. Jonathan settles in Europe, leaving his past behind and starting anew. One day, as he wanders the streets, he catches sight of a face that haunts his dreams, the spark of connection reigniting. This time, however, Jonathan is no longer hesitant. He confidently moves through the crowd, stepping towards his own happiness. That's all for today's video. If you're also a fan of crime movies, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one.